Carl Jung's most unsettling discovery was not hidden in dreams or myths. It was hidden in the ordinary, your daily choices. You believe transformation comes in flashes of inspiration, sudden breakthroughs, dramatic turning points. But Jung revealed the darker truth. Your psyche is shaped not by chaos, but by consistency. And that is dangerous, because inconsistency keeps you safe. It gives you excuses. It lets you say, I could have been great if only I had kept going. But when you force yourself to be consistent, the mask falls. You meet who you truly are. Jung wrote, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate." Consistency is that confrontation. It drags your shadow into the light. And once the door opens, you cannot close it. Force yourself to be consistent, and everything falls into place. 1. The shadow of inconsistency. Meet David, brilliant, creative, overflowing with ideas. He starts projects with fire, business ventures, fitness goals, spiritual practices, but he never finishes. Each time, he quits just as momentum builds. On the surface, he shrugs it off. I just lost interest. But in truth, David is haunted. This is what Jung would call the shadow of inconsistency. The part of you that whispers, not today, tomorrow, later. The part that seduces you with comfort, then chains you with regret. Jung warned, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. David thinks his fate is bad luck. In reality, it is his shadow, hiding behind inconsistency, directing his every move. The danger: the more you break promises to yourself, the stronger the shadow grows. Every skipped workout, every abandoned idea, every lost day adds another brick to the prison. I call this prison the vanishing shadow because it erases your potential before you even see it. And here's the unsettling part. David is not unique. He is you. He is all of us. Each time you give in to inconsistency, you surrender your power to the unconscious. 2. The seduction of chaos. Now meet Sarah. She calls herself a writer. Her notebooks are filled with fragments, half poems, half stories, beginnings without endings. She waits for inspiration to strike. She says, I'm most alive in chaos, when I don't plan, when I let things flow. On the surface, it sounds poetic, but Jung would call it dangerous. He once wrote, in all chaos, there is a cosmos, in all disorder, a secret order. Sarah thinks her chaos is freedom. In reality, it is enslavement. Beneath the surface, her unconscious patterns are running the show. She isn't flowing, she's drifting. This is what I call the illusion of random genius. The seductive belief that chaos will somehow carry you toward destiny. But chaos only repeats itself. It loops, it deceives, it numbs. And while Sarah waits for inspiration, her potential rots in silence. Here is where the danger lies for you. Every time you indulge in chaos, skipping structure, waiting for mood, chasing novelty, you strengthen the illusion. You convince yourself that someday, somehow, things will align, but they won't. Jung taught us that freedom is not the absence of order. True freedom comes from confronting your patterns and shaping them with conscious will. Sarah isn't free. She's trapped in chaos, chained by the unconscious. And unless you break that pattern, so are you. 3. The first truth of consistency. Enter Amir. Not a guru, not a genius, just a man who made one small choice. 10 minutes of meditation every day, no matter what, rain or shine, busy or tired. He sat, he breathed, he repeated. At first, it seemed pointless. 10 minutes, too small to matter. But weeks became months. Months became years. And slowly, Amir's psyche shifted. He became calmer, sharper, a presence that others noticed without understanding why. This is the first truth of consistency. Small acts are not small. They carve grooves into the soul. They engrave a pattern that rewires destiny. Jung said, "You are what you do, not what you say you'll do." Consistency transforms identity. Amir wasn't someone trying to meditate. He became a meditator. His action defined him. I call this the ritual self, because each repeated act, writing, exercising, praying, studying, is more than habit. It is ritual, and ritual transforms chaos into order. Now, look at yourself. How often do you declare change, only to quit? How often do you confuse words for action? The first truth is brutal but liberating. Identity is built in repetition. Force yourself into a daily ritual, however small, and you will not just do differently, you will be different. Consistency doesn't whisper, it rewrites your very name. 4. The danger of fragmentation. Now meet Clara. She is talented, intelligent, restless. 1 year, she studies law. The next, she tries photography. Then she jumps into a new relationship, only to abandon it when the excitement fades. Each time she begins, she burns with energy. Each time she abandons, she leaves behind another half-built life. On the outside, Clara looks adventurous, free-spirited, endlessly curious. But beneath the surface, Jung would see something else: fragmentation. Jung warned us, the greatest tragedy of the family is the unlived lives of the parents. But this tragedy does not only belong to families. It belongs to individuals who scatter themselves so thinly that nothing ever matures, nothing ever roots, nothing ever becomes whole. This is what I call the fractured mirror. Every new pursuit is like a shard of glass. Each piece reflects a part of Clara, but never the whole image. She mistakes variety for wholeness, when in truth, she is staring into a mirror that cannot hold her together. The danger of fragmentation is subtle. You may convince yourself you are exploring. You may call it freedom, experimentation, or passion. But if you never commit long enough for something to take root, you remain a collection of fragments, a mosaic with no pattern. And here is where it gets dangerous for you. Every time you abandon your path midway, you abandon a piece of yourself. Your relationships become half-lived, your work half-done, your potential half-buried. Clara is not unique. She is a mirror for all of us. Inconsistent choices fracture our identity until we can no longer recognize who we are. Consistency is the glue. It is what takes the fragments and fuses them into a singular whole. Without it, you remain scattered. With it, you become unbreakable. The danger of fragmentation is not failure, it is disintegration. And unless you choose consistency, that danger becomes your fate. 5. The archetype of discipline. Now meet Marcus. As a teenager, he was weak, withdrawn, overlooked. But one day, he stepped into a weight room, not for glory, not for competition, just to try. The first day, the barbell felt unbearable. The second day, his muscles ached, but he returned again and again. He lifted, he struggled, he repeated. Weeks turned into months, months into years. And slowly, Marcus transformed, not just in body, but in spirit. His discipline became an identity. He no longer said, "I'm trying to get stronger." He became a strong man. His discipline forged him. This is the truth Jung would reveal. Discipline is not mere willpower. It is archetypal, ancient, a force older than your conscious mind. Jung wrote, "Who looks outside dreams, who looks inside awakes." Discipline is that awakening. When you return day after day to the same task, you are not just practicing, you are calling forth what I call the inner warrior. The inner warrior is not glamorous. He does not live for applause. He lives for repetition, for showing up, for the sacred act of doing, even when no one notices. He is the archetype of persistence that slumbers inside every human being, waiting to be summoned. And here lies the connection to you. Every time you avoid discipline, you silence the warrior. You let him rust. You trade the strength of your soul for the comfort of your moods. But when you force yourself to repeat, when you refuse to quit, you awaken this warrior. He fights not against the world, but against your own inertia, against your shadow, against your unconscious. Marcus discovered the archetype through weights. You may discover it through writing, through prayer, through business, through art. The form does not matter, the repetition does. Because discipline is not punishment, it is not slavery, it is the ancient pattern of becoming. It is the fire that tempers the steel of your spirit. When you step into discipline, you do not just shape your life, you step into the timeless archetype of the inner warrior. And once awakened, the warrior does not let you remain small. 6. But here's where it gets dangerous. Up to this point, consistency has sounded noble, a path to strength, clarity, wholeness. But Jung's most unsettling insight is this: consistency is also dangerous. Because the moment you make yourself return day after day, the unconscious begins to stir. Meet Leah. She was an ordinary woman who decided to journal every morning for 15 minutes. Nothing complex, just thoughts on paper. At first, it was harmless. Lists, reflections, memories. But after several months, strange things began to appear in her writing. Dark memories she had buried, dreams she couldn't explain, patterns of fear and shame that bled through the page. Leah had opened a door, and she could not close it. Jung warned us, there is no coming to consciousness without pain. This is the part no one tells you. Consistency isn't just discipline, it's confrontation. Every repeated act is a mirror, and when you stare long enough, your shadow begins to stare back. I call this the awakening fire. It is what ignites when your ritual pierces the unconscious. It burns illusions, it burns comfort, it burns everything false. But fire does not discriminate. It reveals the treasure, and it reveals the demons. Here lies the danger for you. You want the benefits of consistency, clarity, progress, success. But do you want the cost? Because the cost is exposure. The cost is meeting the parts of yourself you have long denied. Most people quit, not because they are lazy, but because they awaken the fire and recoil from its heat. They think, something is wrong. I feel unsettled. I feel haunted. Better to stop. But Jung would say, this is precisely the threshold. The pain is not a mistake. It is the passage. The unconscious is not your enemy. It is your unclaimed self. Consistency, then, is a dangerous ritual. It summons what sleeps. It dissolves the mask. It drags up the shadow. And once awakened, the fire demands transformation. For Leah, journaling became more than writing. It became therapy, confession, exorcism. She could no longer pretend. She had to face herself. And so will you. Consistency is not safe. It is not comfortable. It is the most perilous choice you can make. But it is also the only choice that makes you whole. 7. The confrontation with the shadow. Consistency will eventually bring you face to face with something you've spent your entire life avoiding: your shadow. Meet Daniel. For years, he numbed himself with alcohol. Then one day, he chose sobriety, not just for a week, not just for a month, but every single day. At first, it was triumph. He felt clear, proud, strong. But then came the rage, then the shame, then the memories he thought he had drowned in drink. The more consistent he became in his sobriety, the louder the shadow screamed. Jung wrote, "One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious." This is the brutal paradox. The more you force yourself into consistency, the less you can hide. Your rituals strip away the fog. And in the clarity, the monsters emerge. I call this shadow confrontation. It is the battle every consistent soul must fight. Not against the world, but against the hidden self, the anger you repress, the fears you deny, the wounds you never healed. Daniel discovered that quitting alcohol was only the beginning. The real work was sitting face to face with his pain without escape. His consistency dragged him into the abyss he had spent decades avoiding. And though terrifying, it was the only path toward integration. And here is where it touches you. You think consistency will only build skills, habits, success, and it will. But it will also uncover everything within you that resists change. The laziness, the resentment, the old voices whispering, you are not enough. Most people quit here. They say, this feels wrong. I didn't sign up for this. But this is exactly what Jung meant. Enlightenment is not light. It is shadow illuminated. Your consistency is the lantern. Your shadow is the cave. Enter it, and you will shake. Enter it, and you will want to turn back. But stay, because inside the confrontation lies the treasure. Daniel's rage, once faced, became fuel. His shame, once named, became compassion. His pain, once accepted, became wisdom. This is what consistency does. It does not just build the self you want. It forces you to face the self you've hidden. And until you confront the shadow, you cannot become whole. 8. The integration stage. Meet Maya. For years, she felt scattered, jobs half-finished, passions abandoned, relationships broken. Then she made a simple choice, to paint every day, just one canvas, no matter how messy, no matter how small. At first, it was practice, brushstrokes, colors, shapes, but soon her art began to reveal more than skill. Images emerged that she didn't plan, dark figures, strange symbols, fragments of dreams. It frightened her, yet she kept going. Jung wrote, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." And this is what was happening to Maya. Through consistency, she stumbled into what Jung called individuation, the process of integrating the conscious self with the unconscious, of becoming whole. I call this stage the individuation path. It is when the shadow no longer hides in darkness, but is invited into the circle of the self. You stop fighting with your inner demons, and instead, you give them form, voice, and place. They become part of you, not as enemies, but as energy. Maya's monsters became paintings. Her fear became expression. Her hidden dreams became visible on the canvas. And through her ritual of consistency, she began to see herself not as fragments, but as a single, living whole. This is the transformation most people miss. They think consistency is about productivity, achievement, success. But Jung reveals a deeper truth. Consistency is about integration. Every time you return to your practice, you are not just training your skill, you are reconciling your soul. And here is where it matters for you. Without consistency, your shadow remains in the dark, ruling your life unseen. With consistency, the fragments of your psyche, your fears, your hopes, your wounds, your strengths begin to weave together. You cease being at war with yourself. You become unified. Integration is not easy. It demands pain, honesty, and patience, but it is the only path to wholeness. Jung taught that the goal of life is not perfection, but completion, not purity, but unity. Maya found her unity through paint. You may find yours through writing, discipline, prayer, training. The form does not matter, the ritual does. Consistency is the thread, integration is the tapestry, and individuation is the image that finally emerges. 9. The transformation promise. Meet James. For most of his life, he was restless. Every year he chased a new plan, start a business, learn a language, get fit. Each effort burned bright, then quickly died. He lived in cycles of excitement and collapse, always promising himself that next time would be different. Then one year, James did something strange. He chose one discipline, running, and he committed to it for 365 days without negotiation. Rain, snow, exhaustion, it didn't matter. He ran. At first, nothing magical happened. The same doubts circled in his mind. The same voice whispered, "Quit. What's the point?" But as the days turned into months, something inside him shifted. His restlessness dissolved. He became calm, grounded, focused. Friends said, "You're not the same person," and he wasn't. Jung once said, "I am not what happened to me. I am what I choose to become." This is the heart of transformation, not what fate delivers, not what chaos brings, but what consistency sculpts. I call this conscious transformation. It is the alchemy that takes raw fragments, fear, habit, shadow, and forges them into a new identity. Not by chance, but by choice. Not in bursts, but in steady repetition. James thought he was only training his body, but he was also training his psyche. Each run told his unconscious, "I keep my word." Each mile whispered, I do not abandon myself. Over time, this became his truth. His very being shifted, and this is the promise waiting for you. Force yourself to be consistent, and you won't just accomplish tasks, you will become someone else. Someone clearer, stronger, whole. But here's the decision. Will you choose it? Most will not. Most will run from the shadow, retreat from the fire, cling to chaos. But if you stay, if you endure, the promise is transformation, engagement. Prompt. Comment below, I choose conscious transformation. Let your words be the first act of discipline. Consistency is not about success alone. It is about identity. It is the promise that who you are today is not who you must remain. Choose it, and everything falls into place. 10. The empowering close. We have walked through the shadow. We have seen the seduction of chaos, the danger of fragmentation, the awakening fire of discipline, and we have faced the confrontation with the shadow, the integration of the self, and the transformation that consistency promises. Now comes the choice. Force yourself to be consistent, and everything will fall into place. Not because the world bends to your will, but because you bend into alignment. Your shadow, your fears, your gifts, your destiny, all begin to fuse into a whole. Jung taught us, wholeness is not achieved by cutting off a portion of one's being, but by integration of the contraries. That is what consistency does. It integrates, it completes, it does not erase your darkness, it weaves it into strength. Think back, David, consumed by the vanishing shadow of inconsistency. Sarah, trapped in the illusion of random genius. Amir, discovering the ritual self. Clara, shattered in the fractured mirror. Marcus, awakening the inner warrior. Leah, consumed by the awakening fire. Daniel, entering shadow confrontation. Maya, walking the individuation path. James, embodying conscious transformation. Each one mirrors you. Each one shows a stage of your own psyche's journey. And now, you must decide. Will you keep surrendering to inconsistency, forever circling in chaos? Or will you step into the danger of discipline, confront your shadow, integrate your fragments, and awaken your warrior? This is not about perfection. It is not about productivity hacks or surface habits. This is about destiny. This is about Jung's deepest insight. The self you avoid is the self that holds your power. Force yourself to be consistent. The rituals you dread are the doors you most need to open. And when you open them, your demons will rise, but so will your destiny. Engagement prompt. Write in the comments, I choose consistency. I choose transformation. Say it aloud, claim it. Let the unconscious hear you. Because the privilege of your lifetime is not comfort, not chaos, not half-lived fragments. The privilege of your lifetime is to become who you truly are. So choose. Choose consistency, choose transformation, force yourself to be consistent, and everything will fall into place. See you in the next dimension.